This is Jeremy with Granules. I have a new release to talk about today, version 11. In this release, I've introduced the ability to attach up to 35 megabytes of different files to your inputs. So you can now attach text files, images, or PDF files. And as long as the encoded version of those files is under 35 megabytes per request, you can now include that as the input for your forecast. Along with forecasting, you can now just do generalized prediction. So the other feature that I'm releasing in version 11 is the ability to do binary prediction. So think of something like logistic regression, but with a multimodal input. So you can basically ask open form questions like what's the probability that an interest rate will increase over the next 30 days, and our model will try to answer that for you and give you the justification as well as the well-calibrated probability estimate for that question that you asked. One of the nice things about this is we give you the ability not only to ask that question, but also to specify how many different agents or underlying experts you want the predictor to actually consult when it forms that opinion. So we support anywhere between two experts or 30 experts that your prediction agent can go out and query. So that's really nice. Within that particular feature, when you ask for an expert opinion from an agent, the agent will give you back two sides of the coin. So you might ask, what's the probability that an interest rate will increase over the next 30 days? The agent will answer that question, but it'll also answer the opposite or the complementary question, being what is the probability that an interest rate won't increase over the next 30 days? And so the reason for that is there's actually a cognitive bias built into most LLMs, and by answering both of those questions independently, we're able to give you basically a consensus result that's less biased by taking both sides of that question and thinking of those together. So each agent will answer both sides of whatever question that you give it and give you back the average probability over those. And then the entire collection of agents will also give you back a consensus prediction over all of their opinions, both positive and negative examples that they've estimated over. The nice thing about the collection of agents is that the collection, because we've gotten so many opinions back, we're actually able to get a really good read on the beta distribution. So the distribution of the probabilities that you would expect to get back from our agents. So that should give you more confidence around how confident we are, how confident the agent is on the exact probability estimate that it's returning to you. That's going to be really useful in different very sensitive like risk situations where you're trying to understand what is the actual confidence that the agent has, how much information, do we need to give the agent more information, or is the situation just so ambiguous or so uncertain that we really can't get a good read on the particular situation that we're asking about? So I think that particular aspect, the beta distribution, for the people who understand what that is and can utilize that, that's going to be very powerful, something way beyond what you can get with logistic regression. And for everyone else, I think just getting back a probability estimate along with a set of explanations, getting the estimate itself back is super powerful. Getting the set of explanations back, compared from both views, you can basically read through those and see different aspects, maybe aspects that you haven't thought about that the agents are bringing up and highlighting to you in their discussion. So that's the new agent, along with the ability to add in now up to 35 megabytes of contextual data. I think it's going to be a really cool situation to be in. So one use case that is present today is the NCAA tournament. So I wanted to walk you through a little demo of using our new agent to basically pick teams for the NCAA bracket. On the left-hand side here, I have Claude Desktop, which is where I have our agent attached through an MCP server. So if you haven't watched our other videos, basically in the desktop version of Claude, you can basically attach different tools to Claude Desktop, which is kind of a client. You can attach those tools, and Claude understands how to talk with Cronulus. It can also talk with other types of tools. So along with Cronulus, I also have a file system tool installed, and I also have a fetching tool, which allows you to go out and fetch text data from different URLs. So I'm not actually going to use the fetch tool in this particular demo, but you can see down below it is using the file system tool to read different files on my computer. So the setup here, I've basically structured on my laptop. I've structured a folder called NCAA matchups, and I've given Claude Desktop access to that in the configuration. So I have in our repo for the Cronulus MCP, you can see how we set up the configuration here. So the Cronulus agent, file system, this is where you specify the path, for example, to this NCAA matchup. So in my configuration, I have this set to the location of that NCAA matchups folder on my computer. And then if you're going to use fetch, you can also include it here. It doesn't hurt to just have a bunch of different servers included in your configuration. Most of the time it doesn't hurt unless you have a ton of them. Sometimes Claude can get confused. In those cases, it does help to have, and I've put more details down below, you can set up preferences in Claude. So either through Claude Desktop or by going to Claude AI/settings, you can actually express your preferences to Claude for how it sort of deconflicts between different types of tools that it uses. Or even if you're not using tools, if you're just doing some other workflow, you could even tell it to do different things here automatically for you. So if you haven't used the preferences before, this is a pretty cool aspect of Claude. There's other AI tools and providers that'll let you do similar things as well, but this is how you can access it through Claude. So if you start going down this path of using Cronulus with different file systems or with the file system tool, I would definitely pull out and use the preferences here. It basically just makes everything work a lot more smoothly with the file system. So yeah, so that's the underlying configuration. So in the directory here, I have for NCAA matchups, based off of the bracket. The goal here is really to predict which team's going to win for every matchup in the bracket. I'm going to start with the first four. So there's like sort of teams that are still playing their way into the tournament. It's called the first four. And the first matchup for that particular set of games is this game between Alabama State and St. Francis. And so I'm going to try to really maintain the same structure within each of my matchups in terms of like the files that I give it. And I just kind of, develop this directory structure as just a way to help the LLM to help Claude stay oriented with how to fetch different files from each matchup. So here I've basically given an injury report. This particular matchup, there's no injury report, so this is basically just a blank file that just says no injuries reported. I also have some other screenshots that I've grabbed. So for example, I have the season schedules that I've grabbed from ESPN for each of the teams, and I guess I actually have it highlighted up here. So for each of the teams, I have their season schedules, so you can see their win and loss record. Just a lot of good details here in terms of like strength of schedule for the team that that Cronulus can pull out. I also have screenshots here from KenPom. I'm not going to show those on screen because I just want to be really respectful of KenPom and their data. So I love their site. Definitely go out and use it. Definitely use it for your own analysis. I don't want to show that on screen and get into any sort of like legal issues with KenPom, but definitely utilize their stats. It's super helpful. Kind of the gold standard in like college basketball. So that's how I have this set up. I'm going to basically tell Claude now how to access those. And by the way, I also have the overall schedule for the tournament here. I pulled that off of the NCAA site. So this is just text form. Here's the current games as they're scheduled. So so Cronulus and Claude have access to both of these as well. So that, and then also the bracket as a PDF, so we can actually utilize our new PDF reading ability. So now that I have those files kind of set up like this, the prompt I'm going to use in Claude to do this is just talk about what we want to do. So saying that the tournament starts tomorrow, I'd like to make predictions for the first round of the tournament. Basically just telling Claude, hey, go out and create a session in Cronulus, walking through the general workflow of how we want to start getting set up. Explaining the workflow that I want to go through, because there's different ways that you can configure Cronulus, so you can reuse a session, reuse an agent, so you don't have to recreate everything every single time you want to make a prediction. So once you create a session and an agent, you can just reuse it as long as everything's kind of set up the right way. So here I'm just going to walk Claude through how to do that very specifically, and say that, hey, I definitely want to use this new binary predictor that we've launched in Cronulus for that. I'm going to tell it basically how to access the images, the injury reports, and generally like where stuff's located. So so for example here, where's it at? Here I've given an indication that our data is in this first for. So if you use the slash, basically Claude doesn't know about anything else on your computer other than what you've given it access to in that file system configuration. So basically here, wherever this workspace is that you've told it to start at, it doesn't know about anything else. So it's not going to like look at the root of your computer or something. It's just going to start looking right directly in that folder for anything you told it to look for. So I've told it where to find the images, the PDF for the bracket. I've also told it, hey, there's situations in some of these matchups where I want to maybe provide additional context to feed through to Cronulus, or additional images that maybe I find something else that I want to feed in that is sort of like out of the norm. Maybe I change how I want to, what types of data I want to collect as I'm going through the different matchups. So I'm basically telling it to, hey, create these like placeholder fields in Cronulus, and I'll just give you data for that later on at some point. So just kind of as a backup data field, just in case. So that's really all that there is. The last thing here is I told Claude to basically go ahead and save the results to HTML in this pics folder at the end. So there's a specific tool in Cronulus that is very efficient at writing out the full analysis for our predictions out to HTML. So Claude's going to use that tool to write out that particular format to that file. So that's the overall prompt. I'm basically planning on reusing this prompt, kind of opening up a new conversation, using the same prompt, basically just feeding through a new pick or a new matchup that I want to analyze, and then I'll go in and copy the directory structure on my laptop, and just grab a couple snapshots from the different schedules and teams that I want to analyze. So that's kind of the workflow that I'm going to start out with, just to see how that flows through, and maybe I'll change that down the road. But that's kind of where I'm at the moment. So this is what Claude gave us after that prompt. So it basically understood how to create the Cronulus session. It went through, it scanned the different directories to find the files that we told it about. It read the men's schedule, understands, I guess it basically just gave back like a summary of what's in there. Oh yeah, there's the whole file. And then we get down here, and it's basically scanned everything, understood what types of fields to create, and now it's going to set up our session for us. So it's basically broken down. It's going to name our session, It's going to set up the situation, so like the overall context of what we want to do, or the reason, motivation for why we're setting up the session. It knows that there's 68 college basketball teams in the tournament, and then the specific tasks. So it's gonna set it up generally enough that we can reuse the session across multiple predictions. Once it has that session, it's going to take that and it's going to create a agent. And this is where you get much more detail. So this is where it actually creates the fields that it feeds through to Cronulus. These are the actual input data items that it's giving to Cronulus. It's created a field for the names of the teams, their seeding, and then it's feeding through the file paths of the different files that Cronulus is going to pick up and send out. So that's the agent creation, and it's also basically chosen just to use five experts. It is more expensive to use more experts, so in general I think 5 is a good amount. You're going to get a more stable prediction if you use more experts. You can use as few as 2 experts, but your prediction is going to vary more if you only use 2. So I'd say like 5 to 10 is a pretty good sweet spot. I don't want to set the default too high and then have it be too expensive if you're just kind of trying it out for the first time. So this is the number of experts. If you want Claude to do something different, just tell it to use a different number of experts. It'll know how to do that. So that's setting up the agent, and at the end of that, we get back a prediction. We get back the agent ID that it created, the request ID, and we get back these beta parameters. So these are the parameters for our beta distribution that inform kind of they're both shape parameters, so they inform the shape of the distribution. And then we get back the expert opinions that were used to estimate that beta distribution. This is not a helpful way to read the opinions. So what Claude has done is it's taken these and used our tool to save these out to HTML. So it's kind of chosen a name for the HTML file and written those out for us. So we can go and look at those on our laptop now. So it's this file here. I already have it pulled up, so I'm just going to go to that. This is what's in the file. We can see the shape of the underlying beta distribution at the top. These are our parameters that we got back from Cronulus. We have a summary output over all of the different experts that came back. In this particular case, this matchup is between a 16 seed and another 16 seed. They're very evenly matched, and so Cronulus has given us a prediction of just over 50% for Alabama State. That is basically a coin flip, and that makes sense because they're two very evenly matched teams. If we scroll down, we can see the positive and negative cases for each of the experts. So each expert has the same persona, it has the same sort of underlying skill set. You just think of it as being the same person who's answering this question, but a person whose memory can be basically rewritten, right? So I'm able to ask the same agent, the same question independently. So it's answer the positive case and then the negative case, but when I answer the negative case, it doesn't know that it already answered the positive case. So you're going to get back completely distinct answers from these, and you can see here the question that was framed that it was actually using when it responded to that particular question, right? So here, this is the positive version of the question, and here is the rewritten negative version of the question, where it asks, what is the probability that Alabama State loses to St. Francis? As opposed to here, it says, what's the probability that Alabama State wins against St. Francis? So that's the main question, or the main aspect here between the positive and negative cases. And then for each of the 5 experts, you get back the same the same thing. So they each end up answering slightly different questions. This is really nice because it gives you a little bit more of a sensitivity analysis. If you just ask the same question to the agents, a lot of times like there's sensitivity around specific words or specific phrasing, and so you might get back results that are too overly confident. Whereas here we're actually answering different questions in each case, and then also flipping them and answering the complementary question, which helps not only avoid results that are overly certain, but also results that are biased in one way because the agent is maybe focused or anchored to a specific phrasing that it shouldn't be anchored to, or isn't intended to be anchored to. So these are the results, and we got all this back just by entering that simple prompt at the top, this prompt here. And we can basically reuse this whole workflow to go through and find all of our picks. Obviously, we don't have to, in this case, we might have to do some more work, and we could rerun it maybe with some more data. If we think, if maybe we're biased ourselves, maybe we have a favorite, we think that Alabama State's going to win or St. Francis is going to win, we can go in, maybe pull in some more context and maybe help it lean one way or the other, or see how it responds to that. So you can definitely rerun this and play around with it that way as well. So I'm going to actually put all of the picks that I come up with later tonight. I'm going to put them in a repo called MCP Madness under our company repo, company organization on GitHub. So you can take a look at those. If you don't have the time to go through and come up with picks yourself, you can go through and at least see the picks that I was able to get through today after I finish work. So appreciate you taking a look at that. At the end, so I don't have a tool specifically to save our session or information out and reuse it between different Claude conversations, but because we had that file system tool, I basically just told Claude, hey, can you save out the information we need to basically reproduce this for another conversation. So in the next conversation, I'm going to take the original prompt that we gave Claude and basically give it the session ID and agent ID and the input data model and say, hey, we've already done this before. Can you just reuse this stuff that you've already set up for us? And then I'll, let it get straight to the point, basically, in terms of creating a system that's a little bit more reproducible for setting up our picks. So that's what I have. Hope you guys get a chance to try it out. I know there's not much time to actually pick brackets for the tournament, but I'm going to give it a go and try to make some picks for both the men's and women's tournament. So thanks for watching.